So you're thinking about the Maldives. Maybe you've seen pictures, the overwater villas, the turquoise water, the white sand that looks almost too perfect to be real. And you've thought to yourself, I want to go there. But then you've started looking into it and suddenly there are questions everywhere. Which island? Which resort? How do I even get there? What's this seaplane business? How much is it really going to cost? Because here's the thing about the Maldives. It looks simple on the surface. Beautiful beaches, luxury resorts, crystal clear waters, perfection. But there is actually a lot to understand before you book. And if you don't understand how it works, you can end up making some very expensive mistakes. I'm Becky Lydia, and this is Maldives Guide. So in this video, I am going to walk you through absolutely everything that you need to know as a first-timer going to the Maldives. We're talking location, weather, how to get there, what it costs, what to pack, the culture, the rules, all of it. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly how a Maldives holiday works, and you'll be ready to start planning yours with confidence. So I've been visiting the Maldives for quite a number of years now. My husband has been going since he was a child, and the first time I went was for our honeymoon. I have since gone with family, with parents, and then later on with our own children. We've been with toddlers, we've been with children, and now we've been with teenagers as well. So I like to think we have quite a bit of experience in that aspect, but I do remember how daunting it was the first time we had to plan this. And we didn't realise quite how difficult it was to actually set it all up and go. Was it going to be a once-in-a-lifetime thing? It needed to be perfect. It was a honeymoon. Hopefully that is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. So let's start right at the beginning with what the Maldives actually is and where it is. The Maldives is an island nation in the heart of the Indian Ocean, set just southwest of India and Sri Lanka. It's made up of 26 natural atolls split up into 20 administrative regions containing more than 1,100 islands overall. But here is a stat that stops people in their tracks. Despite spreading across roughly 90,000 square kilometres of ocean, less than 300 square kilometres is actually land. The Maldives is more than 99% water. And most of those islands sit barely 1.8 metres above sea level, making it one of the lowest lying countries on Earth. And you will notice this as soon as you arrive. You will arrive over water to this small island with a runway and an airport on it. You will see the capital city there with its high-rise buildings, but that is not typical of the Maldives. There are very few islands that look like that. What you will see is just miles and miles of turquoise, crystal clear, beautiful water. And there is no getting away from it. You cannot get away from the sea in the Maldives. The islands are so small. You can always hear the sea, you can always see the sea. That extraordinary geography is exactly what gives the Maldives its magic, but it's also what makes planning a trip very different to anywhere else you've ever been. Brings me perhaps to the most important concept to understanding the Maldives. One island, one resort. In most holiday destinations, a beach might have 10 different hotels all sharing the same strip of sand, but not here. In the Maldives, each resort occupies its own entire private island. No outside guests, no public beach, no neighbouring hotel, just you, your resort, and your own stretch of paradise, plus all the other paying guests that are at your resort. The majority of resorts really do feel like they are just there for you. You will arrive and you might arrive with a few other guests, but you might arrive on your own. You might come out of your beach villa to go to dinner and not see anybody on your journey. There are islands that are so quiet that you would think it was your own private island. It's an amazing experience, it's a beautiful experience. If that's not your thing, there are others, of course, that are busier, that are perhaps smaller with more people, or much bigger with a lot more people. There is really something for everybody in the Maldives, so you've just got to find the right place for you. Now, that exclusivity that I was talking about is exactly what the Maldives is famous for, but it also means there's no popping out for a cheap drink down the road, there's no wandering into town for dinner. Your resort is your world for the duration of your stay. For some people that sounds like heaven, for others it takes a little getting used to. Either way, knowing this up front changes how you choose your resort, which is why it's one of the first things I want to cover. If you want to go deeper on how to actually choose the right resort for you, I will have a full dedicated video on that and I will link it below, so make sure you give it a watch. Now, one of the most common questions I get asked is, when is the best time to go? The good news is the Maldives is a year-round destination. It doesn't close down. And it's warm all the time. We're talking about 26 to 31 degrees Celsius throughout the year, day and night, and the sea stays around 28 degrees, or even when you're 30 meters below the surface. So there's no winter, summer, spring or autumn. Instead, the Maldives has two seasons, and that is a dry season and a wet season. So dry season runs roughly from December through to April. This is peak season, it's blue skies, calm seas, incredible visibility in the water, and yes, of course, it's going to be the highest prices as well. Wet season, however, runs from around May to November, give or take. Now, don't let the word wet put you off. This doesn't mean it rains all day, every day. Most showers in the Maldives are short tropical downpours. It can absolutely chuck it down for about 20 minutes and then it is glorious sunshine for the rest of the day. But the weather is never guaranteed in either season. So you need to be aware of that. Wet season also brings rougher seas, which can affect water sports and snorkeling conditions, as well as diving. But it brings lower prices, fewer crowds, and interestingly, some of the best diving, because the currents that come with the rain bring incredible marine life, such as manta rays. So I have to say, I prefer to go in wet season, but it's also, when I go, I know it's not going to be the last time I go. So if it's a once in a lifetime thing for you, I would suggest going in the dry season. It is more Instagrammable, you have the weather, you will almost guarantee that you'll be able to have that special beach dinner, and to go out snorkeling every day if you want to. In the wet season, there is a higher chance, obviously, of rain, so you may have less opportunity to go out snorkeling, to go and have those beach dinners. Things might have to get cancelled, but as I say, it doesn't usually last for very long. So if it's raining in the morning, there's no guarantee it's going to be raining in the afternoon. Now, obviously it can rain for an entire week, and we've been there where it has rained for an entire week. But we still had a great time. There were so many things to do still, and it's warm. You can go outside, you can get wet. You spend most of your time in your swimming things anyway in the Maldives. Let's be honest. The real difference is the photographs and some of the water sports and things like that. So I have a full weather video coming out where I go into much more detail on this, and I will link below once it drops. So let's talk about transfers. Now, this is the section that catches so many first-timers completely off guard. Getting to the Maldives is relatively straightforward. Nearly all international flights land at Valana International Airport in Malé. But landing at Malé is just step one, because here's the thing, your resort might be in a completely different atoll, potentially hours away from the airport. But getting there is part of the experience. There are three main ways to transfer to your island. So I'm going to start with speedboats. For resorts closer to the airport, the speedboat transfer is the most common option. It's faster, cheaper, than the alternatives, and on a calm day, it's a lovely way to start your trip. Now, there's obviously the seaplane, the iconic seaplane transfer. And if your resort is further out, this is more likely how you will get there. The views are absolutely breathtaking, flying low over the atolls, seeing all those absolutely gorgeous islands and lagoons spread out below. It's genuinely one of the most beautiful things I've ever experienced. But there are a few things that you need to know about a seaplane transfer. They only operate in daylight hours, which means if your international flight arrives late, you may need to spend a night near the airport before continuing your journey to your resort. They also have a lower baggage allowance than international flights, which we'll come back to in the packing section. The other transfer method is a domestic flight with a boat at the end. There are a number of domestic airports dotted around the Maldives, and for the more remote southern atolls, this would be your only option. You'll take a short domestic flight to a regional airport, followed by a boat transfer to your island. And here's the part that people often don't factor in until it's too late. Transfers can add significantly to the cost of your trip. A return seaplane transfer can run into several $100s per person, so always factor that in when budgeting for your trip. I have a full video dedicated to transfers coming out soon, including seaplane versus speedboat and what to expect, and how to prepare. And so make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss it. On to visas and entry requirements. Good news on this one, the Maldives has one of the most straightforward entry systems in the world. Regardless of your nationality, almost, you'll receive a free 30-day tourist visa on arrival, as long as you have a valid passport, a confirmed accommodation booking, and a return or onward ticket. The one thing you do need to do in advance is complete the Imugga Traveller Declaration form. Now, it's completely free. It's done online and it needs to be submitted within 96 hours before you travel. It covers your travel and accommodation details, and it helps speed up the arrival process. It's a very simple process, just don't leave it until the very last minute when you're at the airport, because it can be a bit of a faff. I will make a full visa and entry video and link it below, including a step-by-step walkthrough of the Imugga form. Make sure you check that out. So now let's talk about accommodation, because it's not as simple as just picking a resort. But you probably don't think that's very simple either. There are actually several different ways to experience the Maldives, and it depends on your budget and what kind of holiday you're after. So the first and most popular option is, of course, resort islands. This is the classic Maldives experience, the one that you've seen in every travel brochure and Instagram post, a private island resort exclusively for their paying guests for the duration of their stay. And crucially, resorts span a huge range of budgets. Yes, there are some eye-wateringly expensive ones, but there are also some genuinely good value resorts at the more affordable end that still offer the iconic Maldives feel. The next option is a guest house on local islands. Now, over the past decade, guest houses on local islands have absolutely boomed, and they offer something quite different. Much cheaper than the resorts, more authentic, a chance to actually experience some Maldivian life and culture up close. But, and this is important, local islands have different rules. No alcohol, modest dress is expected, swimwear only on designated tourist beaches, but we'll cover that more in a moment. The other option that you have is hotels near Male. So there are a number of hotels in and around the capital, Male, and Male next door, which is the man-made island. However, these are mainly used for a stopover if you arrive late and can't transfer directly to your resort island. Although there are a lot of guest houses on Male, so you can stay there or in Male if you wish. The last option is liveaboards. For the divers among you, the liveaboard is essentially a floating hotel which travels between dive sites. So think of it like a themed cruise. You live on the boat, dive all day, you wake up somewhere new each morning. It's a completely different way to see the Maldives. I will have a full guide to choosing the right type of accommodation for you out real soon, and a separate video on how to actually choose your resort. So they'll be linked below once they come out. So, culture and local customs. This is one of the sections that surprises people most, so pay attention. The Maldives is an Islamic nation. Islam is deeply woven into everyday Maldivian life. It's been the dominant religion for nearly 1,000 years now. And while you might not notice this at all if you're staying entirely within a resort, it becomes very relevant if you venture onto a local island or pass through the capital of Malé. On local islands, modest dress is expected. That means knees and shoulders covered, no bikini tops, no exposed waists. Alcohol is prohibited outside of resort islands, so you won't find a single drop on the local island or in the capital. Swimwear is restricted to designated tourist beaches only, and not every local island has a bikini beach. So make sure you look out for that. And also, public displays of affection, even just kissing or holding hands, are frowned upon in local communities. So watch that, especially if you're on a honeymoon. You might want to take your honeymoon to a resort island. So at your resort, life is completely different. Relaxed, open, and very much as you'd expect. But if you plan to explore beyond your island at all, it's important to understand and respect these customs. The Maldivian people are genuinely warm and welcoming, and a little awareness goes a long way. I will dedicate a video on Maldivian culture, customs, and what's actually illegal, including some things that might genuinely surprise you. So follow along by subscribing and watch out for it. Right, let's talk about money, because this is where many first-time visitors get a nasty shock. The Maldives is not the cheapest destination. Most people will know that going in. What they don't always know is that the price you see advertised is not very often the price you'll actually pay. Here's what's typically added on top. So you have the 17% GST, that's the goods and services tax for the tourism sector. Then you have the 10% service charge, required by law at all resorts. Then you have the green tax, an environmental levy applied per person per night, and that is for every tourist, no matter where you are staying. So that room, advertised at $100 per night, it might actually cost you $140 or more once everything is added. So always read the small print and ask whether prices are quoted inclusive of tax or exclusive of these tax and charges. Some booking websites are particularly bad for this, looking beautifully cheap right up until the final checkout page. Now, remember also that there is nowhere else to eat on your island other than at your resort. If you're at a local island, there may be a number of restaurants, but you need to check this out before you go so you know what to expect. If you're at a resort, you are stuck eating at the resort. So you need to think about your package as well. If it's only bed and breakfast, then you'll need to pay for your lunch and for your dinner and for any drinks. So all-inclusive starts looking quite good at most resorts. But then again, all-inclusive, if you don't drink or if you don't eat very much, might not be the best deal. So it's worth looking into. So yeah, always look out for that little plus. The first plus is for that 17%, the second plus is for that 10%. So I will have a full breakdown of Maldives taxes and tipping expectations and other costs in a dedicated video, and I will link it below. And now for the fun part. I hear people say sometimes, is the Maldives a bit boring? Like, what do you actually do there? And honestly, I think these people have just never been. Because yes, if you want to do absolutely nothing but lie on the beach for 2 weeks, you absolutely can. And it's glorious. But there is so much more on offer. There is snorkeling, there is scuba diving, and I mean world-class snorkeling and scuba diving. We have manta rays, we have whale sharks, turtles, sharks, and more fish than you've ever seen in your life. There's water sports, jet skiing, paddleboarding, sailing, windsurfing, surfing during the wet season. We have dolphin cruises, there's sunset cruises, fishing trips, island hopping. There's incredible spas on every resort, and some of the most beautiful spa settings that you will find anywhere in the world. There is underwater dining, yes, actual restaurants beneath the surface. There's cultural excursions to local islands, there's drumming performances, dancing, traditional Maldivian cooking, and for little ones there's kids clubs, playgrounds, swimming pools, glass-bottom boat trips, and more. There's really something for everyone, whether you're an adventure seeker, a diver, a foodie, a culture lover, or someone who just wants to sit quietly and stare at the most beautiful water you've ever seen. So let's talk about safety now. The Maldives is genuinely one of the safest holiday locations in the world. Crime at resorts is extremely rare. The private island model means access is controlled and the vast majority of guests have absolutely no issues whatsoever. The main things to be sensible about are the things you would expect from any tropical destination, and we'll go through a few of those now. So sun protection is non-negotiable. The Maldivian sun is intense. Even on overcast days, always wear a high SPF reef-safe sunscreen, cover up during the peak hours of 10 AM to 4 PM and drink plenty of water. The next thing to think about is sea currents. The warm water is incredibly inviting, but currents can be very strong. So always speak to your dive centre at your resort before getting in, because they'll know your specific island's conditions and where is safe to snorkel. Then there's the marine life. Look without touching. That's genuinely all you need to remember. So stay away from stonefish and lionfish, which have venomous barbs, and don't trigger the triggerfish. But otherwise, the underwater world is there to be admired, just not handled. And that includes touching coral. Don't do it. And on the subject of marine life, sharks are not a danger to you in the Maldives. Whale sharks are filter feeders and completely harmless. Reef sharks and nurse sharks are timid and will swim away from you. You're far more likely to be excited about seeing them than frightened. However, remember that these are still animals, and they can and will protect themselves if confused or provoked. Much like how a pet dog can bite too. So just remember to not feed them or go in the water with them if they have been fed. Feeding sharks is actually illegal in the Maldives, but it does still happen at some places, unfortunately. Now, travel insurance is something that I feel quite strongly about, so please don't skip it. Medical evacuation from a remote island can be extraordinarily expensive, as you would expect. So a good policy gives you peace of mind, and given what you've invested in the holiday itself, it's worth every penny. I will have a full safety video, which will be linked below, when I make it. So look out for that one. So let's move on to packing tips. What to pack? The golden rule for the Maldives is to pack lighter than you think you need to. Because if you're taking a seaplane, for example, to your resort, and many people are, the baggage allowance is often significantly lower than your international flight allowance. So we're talking 20 kilograms for your checked luggage, plus 5 for your hand luggage. So always be careful with that one, particularly if you've flown business or first class. You'll be used to the generous luggage limits. Essentials to pack include reef-safe sunscreen, a British-style 3-pin plug adapter, if you need one. The Maldives uses Type G sockets, just like the UK. Waterproof bags for things like boat trips and any water activities. Cameras, obviously, underwater cameras, perfect. Don't forget some modest clothing if you plan to visit local islands. Something like long floaty trousers or a long skirt and tops that cover your shoulder. T-shirts are absolutely fine. It's important to note that this isn't needed in the airport. For that sort of modest dress, it is not expected or required, but if you turned up wearing something a bit too revealing, it might be frowned upon. Okay, so another thing to pack that people might not realise is small denomination US dollar bills, and they need to be quite crisp and quite new dollar bills as well. They are the currency of the tourism sector, and they're useful for tipping even in local islands. If you are going to a local island though, it would be worth picking up some Maldivian money as well, which you can get at the airport. Now, obviously, if you are planning on diving and snorkeling, then you might want to take your own things there. We always take some of our own diving equipment, we always take our own fins and masks and snorkels as well. So those can take up quite a lot of space and weight in your luggage, but luckily you don't need many clothes. You really don't, and you spend half the time in your swimwear if you're at a resort anyway. Let's be honest. The other thing is no shoes. You do not need shoes in the Maldives. If you're going to a resort island, you will take off your shoes and you may not even put them back on again. So one pair of sandals is all you need. And you also don't need anything like jumpers, even for the evenings. It doesn't get cold enough for something like that. So unless you come from a country that is much warmer than the Maldives, you won't need anything to keep yourself warm. So there you have it, everything you need to know before visiting the Maldives for the very first time. So the Maldives is genuinely unlike anywhere else on Earth, but it is also very different from any other type of holiday that you may have been on. And understanding how it all works before you travel genuinely is the difference between a good trip and an absolutely unforgettable one. And in all honesty, I have never met anybody who has not wanted to go back to the Maldives once they've been once. Every single topic that I have covered today will have its own dedicated video here on the channel. Transfers, visas, choosing a resort, seaplanes, culture, snorkeling, taxes, packing, all of it. I'll link everything in the description below once it's released. If this video has been helpful to you, please give it a like. It genuinely helps other people find us. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Maldives Guide. I will be uploading regularly and everything I make is designed to help you plan the best Maldives trip possible. I'm Becky Lydia and I will see you in the next one.